So with the rise of fast fashion and online shopping, textile waste, people are trying to stay warm out there. The homeless people, for example, cost of living is going up and all that stuff. And some places haven't even seen snow until now. So let's convert these resources into something more. Creative redundancy. The one known as CR. Step 1. So basically find 4 matching gloves, like fuzzy gloves. They can be too big, but they cannot be too small. So grab your thread and needle here, and let's stitch this together. So first thing I'm doing here is actually stitching the ring finger and pinky finger, smallest finger, the sides together here. I'm just using back stitches with a stopper knot at the end. Just going back and forth on it. And I'm making sure the stitching is relatively tight. Right, and I'm stretching this glove as I'm doing it, and obviously adjusting it because obviously our fingers are in different lengths, so you know obviously I have to adjust for that too. And basically just going up on it and trying to finishing it off. Any excess thread, I tie it on the back side, for example. Just going back and forth on the back stitches, like I said, and securing this and using fairly tight stitching. And there we go. Stretch test right there. Repeat step 1 another 3 times, then you'll have 4. Step 2, joining the pieces together. Okay, so once you actually have like a set ready to go here, these are the anchor points for the next step right here. So I'm going to start at the pinky side right here. Now grab your thread, your needle, and start sewing the fingertips together. And basically, I'm just going along the pinky side, the tip where the thumbnail, where the nail would be, and going down on the side right here. Just using back stitches, and I'm making sure the stitching is relatively tight, making sure the gaps aren't that far. Now, the next step here is going on the index finger here, and doing the same thing using back stitches here. Making sure my stitching is fairly tight, like I said. Stretching out the material as I'm doing this. And double checking it and all that good stuff. And going down so you can see I was stretching the material again and all that stuff. And basically just going back and forth with the back stitches. And just laying the grid of lines or the thread in there so it actually joins the material together. So you can actually get the outcome that you want. Now here you can see I'm working where the index finger meets up with the thumb here. Right there. And then start stitching it together with back stitches once again. And making sure, like I said, the stitching is fairly tight on it. And right where the V mark is on the glove, where your index finger meets up with your thumb right there, I'm making sure that is very secure and the stitching is very tight. Like there's a line going through right through the center, right where that V mark, or where they connect together on the glove. And I'm making sure that it's nice and tight, like I said. And just finishing it off with more back stitches, going back up towards the index finger and trying to tighten the knot there and secure it all together. Now I'm going to work on the thumb part right here, as you can see. Get that out of the way. Same thing here, just pinching it, lining the edges up the best that I can. Just going back and forth here, using those back stitches. Now I'm going to work on the bottom side, where it connects along the cuff, right where the thumb part would be. And doing the exact same thing, using back stitches. And I secured it a little bit better at the bottom just because you don't have to open it up every time you use it. So I'm making sure that was fairly tight stitching. I even reinforced it a few times, went back on it a few times just to make sure it was secure and all that good stuff. And I just kept going with this. All right, now it's time to work on the opposite side where the pinky meets up with the cuff of this glove slash mitt that you're gonna see come together here. And just like the other on the opposite side, I'm making sure this is secured very, very well. Because like I said earlier, this point will have to stretch out because you're gonna slide your hand in and out of it all the time, for example. So I gotta make sure that's fairly tight stitching, done fairly well. As you can see, I actually had to refret the needle every so often while I was doing this. Now I'm gonna work on the finger parts right here. So where I left off, and just pinching it together, and just stretching the material every so often, and trying to get that nice curve in there where the fingertips would be. Just going back and forth using back stitches, for example. Just going back and forth, just pinching the material, for example. If you don't have, you can use like a binder clip, for example, or something like that to help you pinch it in advance so you don't actually always have to hold it, but just going back and forth on it until the fingertips are all stitched up and there's no more open hole or gap along the top anymore. Just going back and forth, back and forth. Where the fingertips meet together, that groove, I'm making sure I put something in there too. And of course, I gotta finish off this side right here. Hopefully you've been able to follow along with this. Now I'm gonna show you guys some more prototypes, some examples, and some minor or modifications you can do to increase the effectiveness or the warmth value of something like this. Honestly, it's a mitt now, as you can tell. So it's not going to keep your fingers warmer because your fingers are closer or right next to each other. They can all work together, for example, right? Now there's 2 layers, for example. Now, you don't necessarily have to go along the cuff right here. It just depends, because sometimes you might be too tight. If absolutely necessary, you can add material right here where the cuff would be to extend it out so you can actually fit it on. So it just depends. Now, one of the modifications you can do with this is take another glove. Take one of the mitts that you just made here on the inside part. As you can tell, I haven't sewn the bottom where the cuff is. I can actually put my hand in here with the glove on. Now this depends, especially works better with larger gloves, but it is possible to do something like this. And pull my hand out without actually pulling that glove that I have on out. And basically what I'm doing here, I'll probably have to fix this a little here. Basically, just like that, I've added another layer of insulation in there. Honestly, you know, if you were to permanently do this and set this in, you would actually stitch it. So it would obviously be in there. You can obviously cut this part off or trim this off if you want to. So you could do something like this with both gloves, or both mitts in this case, and add a little bit more warmth value to this. Now, something like this here in its base form, you're probably going to be maybe down to 15 Fahrenheit, minus 10 Celsius. If it's windy, you know, and that's just the raw temperature itself. Obviously, if there's a windshield, you know, you'll have to factor that in. Because I've actually tried this in like minus 15. It starts to be limited a little bit more. But anything above or greater than minus 10 Celsius, 15 Fahrenheit, yeah, you'll fare fairly well with something like this. Now, of course, it's not the only ones I made. I made this version right here. Different color too. It's a little bit bigger. I could stretch out my hand in it, as you could see. And they were relatively the same size. So I can stretch out the cuff. And that's why the cuff is all the way sewn together here. Here's another version that's even bigger. See, the cuff isn't sewn together, but I can wear this. This actually has that one additional mitt or a glove on the inside, as you can see right there. So I can put on this side. And as you can see, honestly, yeah, I used one of these gloves for it. So I can have a larger size, for example. Here's a version here that is modified for me to use. Similar to what I showed earlier, a few minutes ago, this has extra insulation on inside. And as you can see, that side, the back side of the hand is actually sealed now. Because I've actually put in extra insulation in here to trap more airspace and all of that stuff. And then put some stitching in there to reinforce it. You can kind of hear that. And I've done it for both of these now. Now something like this, for example, here, will give you, because it's more insulated, this will block more of the wind. Keep your hand, at least the back of your hand, a little bit warmer. Probably buy you in there a few more degrees of insulation, or where you can dip lower on the temperature on the thermometer. So instead of minus 10, 15 Fahrenheit, maybe down to 0, minus 17 Celsius, up to, I wouldn't go beyond that. Or if the temperature's lower than that, yeah, you'll probably need a little bit more, or add in a liner or something over top of this. Now, here's a version right here that's even bigger. It's so big I can't even fit it into the frame here. But this right here these gloves had insulation with them. And I managed to find something that was sized well, or relatively, all 4 parts were kind of the same size, more or less. And now I even have something that has insulation on the inside because it already has it. And I can add stuff into this. And now something like this, I actually did try this out in one of my videos. For anyone that hasn't seen that the Arctic High type of video. Yeah, I actually tried this when it was minus 25 out. So this would be still comfortable even in minus 0 Fahrenheit, minus 17 Celsius. Now minus 26, it was starting to cool off a little. So that's kind of the lower limit for the temperature for something like this. But that was just this. Like this one right here, then I could slip this layer on top. Absolutely. And this would probably get me down to minus 30 Celsius, minus 22 Fahrenheit. I don't know about anything lower than that because I haven't tried it yet. So everyone, consider what you just saw here and go help people out by making something like this for them, or using up some of that gear that you have, that spare gear that you have, those fuzzy gloves that you might have around because you have an excess amount of them, mismatched or whatever, missized or whatever, and bring them back into a state that you can actually use them and to help not only yourself but the ones you care for and other people out there. And like always, everyone, as our world changes, we can adapt to. Our skill and knowledge get better with practice. Can't help everyone out there, but one can help someone. Take care, everyone.